Alright, here we go. Welcome back to Nick Lenz's Comic Corner, Classsics, Non-Classics. This is episode number 3508, Dobuelshot 3402. First up we have is basically the fourth epic collection for the Micronauts. Which, this was kind of weird. According to what I read, it supposedly contains just issues 50 and 59 of Volume 1, which is the end of Volume 1. And that's it. I say it probably should also include the X-Men and Micronauts miniseries. Now, Bill Mansell writes everything, he writes all these issues except for issue 59. 59 is done by the writer who does the relaunch, Peter Giles, who I've met, and who has since passed away. So, for the remaining, 9 issues, you're probably going to ask, what exactly happens over the course of these remaining 9 issues? Answer, not a lot. That's the sad truth. Not a lot happens over the course of these remaining issues. Let's see if I can find it here. Because, yeah, the big thing was 50 that Baron Corza comes back, and the comic just peers along for a little bit. Bill Mansell doesn't stay much more longer after this. Yeah. I can find it here. So basically, for the remaining 9 issues of the book, basically for its relaunch. As for why the book got relaunched, I don't know. So, 51, I love the cover 51, where we have a couple of characters fighting each other. So basically, yeah, Baron Corza is back, and is a big fallout from the return. The conflict just intensifies with more battles. That's kind of what happens. It's more action. But this is kind of a lot of what happens over the remaining 9 issues. And then Bill Mansell leaves with issue 58. Do not know why he left. And he's replaced by Peter Giles, which all 59 does is simply put, 59 is just a backdoor pilot for the relaunch. That's literally what the issue is. So kind of in a way, the main story for the first volume wraps up issue 58, and then of course basically move on to the yeah. By the way, the final issue is drawn by Kelly Jones. I never met the guy, but I heard he's still very much alive. So, yeah. Artwork is a little bit darker, and basically, everybody's preparing for the worst. Because Cards is playing for something really big, and we'll pretty much basically pick up, we talk about the relaunch for the series. So, then we have the X-Men and Micronauts miniseries, which is, Bill Mansell does write this whole thing, but he co-writes it with Chris Claremont. The artwork here is done by, sadly put, an artist who just passed away just this year, Butch Goose. Simply put, it's an amazing team between the X-Men and the Micronauts, where you just have basically a lot of regular Micronauts, Huntra, Arrowyear, Bug, Fleet, Fireflight, Commander Rand, and Metroid. Basically, they team up to do with the Baron Corza. Yeah, you could say this miniseries is a follow-up to the guest star appearance of when Nightcrawler popped up in a couple issues of the main book. But in the case of this, it was awesome. I loved it. Final thoughts on Micronauts Volume 1. This book was absolutely amazing. In all 59 issues, the book never had a bad issue the entire series. It was just pure awesomeness at its finest, and the fact that Marvel didn't release any collections of this stuff until 2023 is shocking. The fact they waited that long. Well, the main reason why, because they didn't have the license. Now, as far as I can tell, they only had the license to basically print the stuff they published. Nothing for Devil's Due, or IDW. They probably don't have a license to print that. That's still owned by their. In the case Devils do, I think the license may have been transferred over to Skybound. That's my guess, anyways. But I haven't seen new for that company for that one. But the other book they got was ROM. Yes, they got the rights to publish the reprint ROM, which they actually, in their Epic collections, they actually printed an issue that was skipped in the Power and Iron Fist issues because it was actually, get this, so the ROM Epic collections not only collects all 75 issues in all 4 annuals, it also collects the issues that they were not allowed to collect originally due to copyright reasons, and those being issue 73 of Power Man Iron Fist, which I discussed before. Incredible Hulk, I think it was like 294, I think it was, and Marvel 2-1 number 99, which they've all been collected, which is awesome. So, yeah, but we're not done just yet. We still have one more thing to discuss here, but yeah, Micronauts Volume 1 is awesome. I highly recommend checking out these Epic collections. There has been like 4 to collect the entire original first volume, and I say that it probably also collects the Forge miniseries because the thing is, Marvel didn't do a lot with the Micronauts, like series wise. They just had the 5th issue book, the TV series with the X-Men, the New Voyagers relaunch, and that was it. Bug basically stuck around. Everyone else basically had to leave because, yeah, for some weird reason, when Marvel lost the license to publish Micronauts, they kept some stuff. One of the weird things they kept was Baron Korza, because he popped up in Bendis's new, I think it was in the final 4 issues of Bendis's new Avengers book. He just pops up there, and of course, Microspace, which I think that concept is still is jointly owned by Hasbro and Marvel because Marvel uses Microspace. So now, let's talk about another phenomenon we'll talk about here. This being the 3rd volume of The Spectre, written by John Ostrander, artwork for a lot of the issues by Tom Mandrake. 51 sees the Spectre team up with Batman to take on the Joker, and this leads into a 4-part story known as The Haunting of Jim Corrigan, which this particular story does have a very big historical note. In issue 54, which is I think was part 3 of the story, it has the debut of Michael Holt, the man who becomes Mr. Terrific. He makes his debut in the issue. Basically, it's what anybody saw in Mr. Terrific Year 1, that miniseries. They practically retold the issue in that very book, just telling about the original Mr. Terrific, and then inspires him when he comes back in the final issue. And after the Haunting of Jim Corrigan, which starts 52, I think it wraps up with issue, I think it was 54. Yeah. So mostly we just have there was some trial, normal stuff basically for this book, and then comes the final issue of the book, because a lot of mini issues are mostly standalone-ish, mostly put just basically a Spectre, and also the fact Jim Corrigan really wants Billy to rest, and so these gorgeous covers. So basically, 55 was standalone. 56 is part 1 of a story called Search for God, where Spectre is searching for God because he's his wrath. And this lasts for, let's see. Yeah, it lasts for a couple issues. And then we have a story called True Believers, where you have the Spectre deal with aliens, which was kind of weird. Yes, aliens. And it's much more, still a little body horror stuff in here, because this is standard for this book. And mostly we're still building up toward the end of the book, but we still have more horror. Jim Corrigan, basically he wants to go back to being dead, and this is the start to begin the end of this book. And then pretty much basically we have all this build up, and then the final issue we bring in practically all the members of the JLA at this point in time, including Blue Suit Man, the JSA, and simply we have a priest there to basically lay Jim Corrigan to rest, and the Spectre leaves Jim Corrigan after having Jim Corrigan be his host since the 1940s, and he leaves him after a period of, I think it was over 50 years. He was the host of the Spectre. He leaves him, and Jim Corrigan is laid to rest. Jim Corrigan himself does not appear again ever in comics. Of course, there is of course a new Jim Corrigan who pops. There's a couple other Jim Corrigans besides the Spectre. There is the black guy from the Black Lightning book, who is a completely unrelated character, and then there is also a sort of more evil version of Corrigan, the third Jim Corrigan, the one who pops up in Gotham Central, the one who was a crooked cop, and also who basically killed Crispus Allen and indirectly set him up to be a new Spectre, which I'll talk about that soon. But Jim Corrigan himself would actually return in the New 52. Yeah, Dan DiDio brought him back in the pages of Phantom Stranger. Instead of the traditional look with the green cape and the shorts, the artists have a good idea to get the Spectre pants. Yes, and it was Jim Corrigan as the Spectre. Yes, also John Constantine missed him too, and he was a Spectre for the longest time. He made his debut in the New 52, basically post-flashback continuity with the Phantom Stranger. I believe it was issue 3 or 4, I think it was, and then he basically was a Spectre up until All In, where he was removed from his post, and the Spectre was forced to have Darkseid serve as his host, and then Darkseid did his whole Absolute Earth thing. He took over that. Last Spectre was seen, he was looking for a new host, and he was looking at possibly having the guy who eventually took over him, which I'll talk about that later. Next time I talk about the Spectre, I'm going to talk about the Day of Judgment miniseries, which should be interesting. But as for the Spectre Volume 3 as a whole, this book was amazing. Another book like the Micronauts, not a single bad issue this whole series. Tom Mandrake himself doesn't necessarily do all the issues of this series per se, but he does do a good chunk of them. It's sad also the fact that DC never bothered to finish collecting this book. Yeah, they just did 2 volumes and that was it. You're like, really? Yeah, really. It's all they did. And I don't know if DC's Finest is going to basically collect this book, because there's one DC Finest book, and it's mostly put just the Showcase Presents Spectre book just collected in this blood color form. That's basically all it is. I saw him like, okay. Yeah. But I would say of the 3 volumes of Review of the Spectre, anybody who has read the Spectre can basically agree with me on this. Out of the first 2 volumes, Volume 3 is the best one. It is also the longest, at 62 issues. It is also known to be one of 2 volumes of the Spectre to have issue 30 published. The other being the previous one of the series, which is done by Doug Mock. Now, there is technically 2 more volumes discussed for Spectre. One is Volume 4 by Jay Matias, which is not as good as this one. And then you have I think it's the Greg Rucka miniseries, which was a aftermath to Infinite Crisis, which was only 3 issues, which was actually the shortest book for for the character himself. Yes, though also Jim Corrigan did have a series of his own in the post-flashback continuity, known as Gotham at Midnight, which was an excellent series that DC stupidly canceled after only 12 issues. This series was really good. Yeah, not a bad issue, because the book was good. It felt like it was really needed. But no, DC and Infinite decided to cancel it. I don't know if I don't know if it was due to sales wise. Maybe not sell what they wanted to, but yeah, it was kind of weird. Do I wish DC would have basically finished this book in trade? Excuse me. Yes. Yes, definitely would. Okay, so that's pretty much it for the video. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, notifications. Next up is Hell Mode. Okay, thanks, you.